In today's episode, we're going to talk about how I bought my first investment property with none of my own money. It's a strategy that I would rinse and repeat and use over 100 times in a row. You're not going to want to miss this one. Now, what you're about to learn is a case study in thinking outside the box, by going against the grain and by going against traditional trends of thought. I bought my first house on credit cards. And believe me, I wasn't a popular guy around the house. You know, if you're like most of us, we all started in this business broke. So in this episode, you're going to learn how I common sense my way into this creative real estate business without a dime to my name. You're also going to see that the method I employed was against everything I'd ever been taught, but because it made sense to me personally, I stuck with it. And last but not least, you're going to see, and we're going to talk about how others perceived me and how they came at me and how they tried to squash my dream. I common sensed my way into the creative real estate investment arena by using what I had with me. I didn't have much, but I had a few things going for me. One was I had good credit. Two, I was believable. I took those two things and launched a career. In 1996, things were a little bit different. In 1996, if you had good credit and you applied for a credit card, you got the credit card in all its cash advance. Whatever it had to offer, you got it all on a silver platter. All they did was check your credit was good, boom, you got it. I also discovered that there was a lot of credit card companies out there, and they were all fighting for my business. So I went out and I applied for 50 credit cards, and I got dang near every single one of them in the mail. All with their cash advance limits, all with their cash advance checks. Everything that these cards had to offer, I got it all. Once I had these 50 credit cards in my possession, it dawned on me that I could get like $300,000 on my dining room table if I wanted to take a couple of weeks and go out and get all the cash advances possible off of all these cards. Now, today, credit card companies have learned to limit the amount of availability you have to unsecured cash, and they'll watch your balances and they'll start to cut you off or slow you down, because apparently a lot of people during that time did what dawned on me. I could have gotten $300,000 on my kitchen table and then taken off for Mexico, never to return. You know, in 1996, $300,000 in Mexico was a lot of money, and I probably could have survived there for a long time. Here's the kicker. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live looking over my shoulder, and I don't want to live off of something I stole from somebody or some company. I want to make my own way. So I decided to take the $300,000 and figure out a way to use it that would get me to where I was going in the style that I wanted to go. It was really pretty simple. Back then, houses in San Antonio, you could buy them for $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 on the lesser sides of town. So what I would do is I would find a house I wanted to buy, and I would grab some credit cards, and I'd say, I would find a house that I wanted to buy. I would grab a handful of credit cards. I'd go down to the bank and I'd say, I want $10,000 off this card. I want $10,000 off of this card, and that'll buy the house. And then I want $10,000 off of this card, and that'll do the rehab. So by the time I became the owner, I'd have $30,000 of this credit card money up at risk, but I'd have none of my own money out of my pocket, which was a good thing because I didn't have any money. And I would get the house fixed up, turned around, and then I would sell the house for $60,000 to a new loan buyer or a cash buyer, and I would profit. The entire $60,000 would come to my bank because there's no lien on this house. I bought it with credit card money. Then I would go to the file of that house in my file cabinet in my office, and I would open up the file of that house, and inside that file would be 3 credit cards or 4 credit cards, and all I had to do was call these credit card companies, ask them what my balances were, cut checks to them, overnight them, certified, signed, sealed, delivered, so they wouldn't hold them and cause me penalties and everything. And then whatever was left over would be my profit. So I had about $30,000 in them. A lot of these credit cards were 0% introductory offers for 6 months or 8 months. I was borrowing this money, buying the house, fixing the house, and selling the house within 30, 60 days. So I wasn't even paying any interest on these cards. And I was profiting, $28,000, $29,000, $30,000 at a whack. I would do this 100 times in a row with credit cards. Now the problem is, we're taught that credit card debt is bad debt, it's ugly debt, it's fatal debt, it's a no-no. You don't run up credit cards. Well, here I am walking into my household with my new wife of about 60 days, racking up about $300,000, $350,000 worth of credit card debt. I mean, the statements were coming in all over the place. We didn't have to make any payments because it was 6 months same as cash, 0% interest, or 12 months we didn't have to make payments. As long as we paid it off in 12 months, it was 0% interest. And some of them were even 18 months. So I wasn't having to make any payments on any of these credit cards. And even if I did, most of the time, the entire payment would go to the principal because we were getting 0% introductory rates. But try to explain the logic of all that to someone who's been taught that credit card debt is bad. I was taught it was bad, but I was using my head thinking, how can it be bad? If I put up $30,000 of credit card debt and it makes enough for me to pay the credit cards back plus $30,000, I don't know. That seems like pretty good debt to me. Like, I'll take all that debt I can get. Just heap it on me, please. But the war at the home, the conversations that I had with people that would discover what I'm doing, or I would tell what I was doing, you would have think I was out there committing some kind of mortal sin. People were really worried about me. People were lecturing me. People were telling me, that I shouldn't be doing this. And today, these people laugh and wonder why they didn't do it. But it wasn't so back then. Not too long after that, there started to be authors like Robert Kiyosaki and other people talking about how there was good debt and bad debt, and how you deciphered between the two was, a bad debt cost more than it was worth, and good debt made you more than it was worth. So if you could make profit with a debt, then it was a good debt. If a debt cost you money every month, then it was a bad debt. And I started to kind of revel in the notion that other people were starting to read these concepts and they were coming to these conclusions. But I had come to that conclusion a long time ago by myself through common sense. So as I said, I would repeat this scenario 100 times, buying over 100 houses with credit cards and then selling them and paying the credit cards back, only to do it over and over and over again. So before I get to the result of what happened because of that path that I took, let's talk about that like button, that share button, and that subscribe button. Please, if this is interesting or helpful or giving you inspiration, smash that like button, smash that share button, and of course, subscribe. Now, what was the result of that bold, out-of-the-box move to buy over 100 houses with my credit cards? People started paying attention. Bankers started recognizing my business acumen. They started seeing that I was taking nothing and I was figuring out a way to make a profit. And that excited them and engaged them and made them want to talk to me and made them want to know more about me. And eventually it led to relationships with banks and other people with money or private lenders. And so through that process of buying houses with the credit cards, I gained a great amount of confidence and I hit the radar of the local business community. It wasn't long before I didn't need to use credit cards anymore, although I still like to do it. Now, we can't buy houses with credit cards anymore because houses aren't $12 and $15 and $18 and $20,000 anymore. These houses are now $100,000, $150,000. Same houses 27 years later in the same town. But the rehabs are $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. So we borrow private money at an interest rate to buy the house, and then we use the credit cards to do the rehab. Still today, these credit cards that I'm using for rehabs are 0% interest for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, because all these credit card companies are fighting for your business. And to get you to switch from that credit card over there to their credit card, they're offering you 0% introductory offers. Again, for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 18 months is about the longest I've seen. So I can use these 0% credit cards to do my rehabs. You know, I have a whole bunch of cards And a couple of cards are doing this rehab, a couple of cards are doing that rehab, a couple of cards are doing that rehab. And guess what? I'm floating hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout the year at 0% interest and not paying anything for my rehab money. And maybe that's the lesson you get from this whole segment. Maybe you should be using 0% introductory offer credit cards to do your rehabs. So I'm glad you stayed for that little golden nugget at the end of this segment. And because you've stayed to the end, I would like to offer you the first 100 pages of my first book, absolutely free, digital downloadable right now. All you have to do is go to 1000houses.com/free-stuff or click on the link right here below and you'll get a free 100 pages of my first book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. It talks a whole lot about how I morph from not having a penny to pinch to becoming a multimillionaire and the thought process behind it and the evolution and the time that it took and unfortunately a lot of ugly things that I had to go through that I'm willing to share with you because it's real life. All right, check it out and I will see you at the next episode.